Center for the Ethiopian Educational Information and Communication Technology presents Educational Satellite Television Programs.
Hello, teacher. Hello, students. Welcome to today's lesson on land pollution. In our last two lessons, we learned about some common types of air and water pollution. We discussed the negative effects these types of pollution have on the environment and on living organisms. We also discussed some methods of reducing these kinds of pollution. In today's lesson, we are going to list and explain some of the sources of land pollutants. We will also discuss the effects of land pollution and describe some of the main methods used to reduce it. Let us begin. Land pollution results when the Earth's surface is degraded, often by the activity of human beings. Land pollution also involves the misuse of land and natural resources. When waste is not disposed of properly, it becomes a pollutant. These pollutants cause damage to the earth over time. Let us discuss some of the factors involved in land pollution. The spillages of oil and other hazardous liquids from leaking pipes is an issue facing industry. When old pipes are not maintained or are not properly replaced, their contents can spill and seep into the earth. This affects the surrounding environment, but it can also have wider repercussions. Pollutants that seep into the earth can pollute groundwater, which eventually becomes a part of the global water system. Another factor that is involved in land pollution is industrial material and chemical substances that have been buried. This is a method of waste disposal that can often lead to environmental damage. For example, metal drums filled with chemical waste substances are often disposed of by being buried. After a period of time, the metal drums corrode and their contents leak into the earth and the water system. Harmful heavy metal ions from buried waste also leach into the water system in this way. Non-biodegradable wastes, such as plastics, can remain in the soil for decades or even centuries. This is because they do not decompose by the action of bacteria. In addition to this, the presence of non-biodegradable wastes over many years hinders air and water movement. This affects the growth of plants and thus the lives of animals and other living organisms. agriculture can also contribute to different varieties of pollution. When farmers use excessive amounts of synthetic fertilizers, herbicides, and pesticides, they introduce pollutants into the soil. Students, I am sure you recall learning about agricultural impacts in our last lesson. Please describe how the use of synthetic fertilizers, herbicides, and pesticides can negatively affect the environment.
Students, let's get ready. Begin. Time's up. Let's get back to our lesson.
Welcome back, students. Let us review how synthetic fertilizers, herbicides, and pesticides can negatively affect the environment. Phosphate and nitrate fertilizers can leach into water systems. When this happens, they accelerate the growth of surface water plants. If there is too much growth, then plants living at the bottom of the water system are unable to get the sunlight they need to photosynthesize. Therefore, the plants eventually run out of food, die, and begin to rot. The bacteria that aid the rot process of plants multiply quickly and consume a lot of the oxygen in water. Natural aeration and photosynthesis are unable to replenish the oxygen fast enough, so other aquatic life dies as well. Some insecticides and herbicides do not decompose very easily. They remain in the environment and sometimes enter into food chains. Insecticides and herbicides accumulate inside organisms that are consumed by other organisms, creating a series of health and behavioral problems in a number of species. Students, now that we have discussed the causes and effects of land pollution, let us learn about some ways by which we can reduce it. Please read through this list of methods and decide which ones would be beneficial for reducing land pollution.
Students, let's get ready. Begin. Time's up. Let's get back to our lesson.
Hello again, students. I am sure that you were able to determine that only 2 of these suggestions would be beneficial for reducing land pollution. We could use biodegradable plastics for packing, and we could burn solid waste like paper and wood. As for method number 3, we want to decrease the use of non-biodegradable plastics, not increase it. Potentially dangerous chemical wastes could also be converted into harmless substances by combustion or by other chemical means. Industries could use the waste products of another industry as their own raw materials. For example, the sulfur dioxide that is formed from roasting sulfide ores during the manufacturing of metals can be used to produce sulfuric acid. Also, the slag that is produced when iron and copper are extracted can be used to produce cement and glass. But what can you do to prevent land pollution in your own community? You can make sure to properly dispose of any waste that you produce. You can recycle plastics and other materials such as glass, aluminum, and tin. And you can try to reduce the amount of non-biodegradable plastics that you use. In today's lesson, we learned about land pollution. We discussed some of the different types of land pollution and some of the sources of land pollutants. We also described the effects that different pollutants have on the environment and the species living within it. We learned about the main methods of reducing pollution and how we can all do our part. This brings us to the end of our lesson. Until next time, thank you, teacher. Thank you, students.